confront those opposing change. And we see those through institutions, even like the World Bank and IMF and whatever, UN institutions, or through leaders, global leaders.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I mean, let's save some of that for the next session. Meaning, in your groups, I want you to talk about those kinds of issues. But let me just take you seriously when you say change gears. And maybe taking seriously changing gears is not to prepare. In other words, and I'm just putting this forward as a discontinuity, as a doing things differently proposition. Up until now, one way or the other, whether it was a corporate agenda or public agenda, the idea was to achieve your agenda. I had a goal. I wanted to build a route to it. It might be indirect, it might be it, but the point was to achieve my plan. My plan was to build a Soviet ideal economy. My plan was to build a free market society, whatever, and to use that as a goal, and then to try and implement it in one way or the other. The urban planning and the images of the ideal urban community are exactly that. And we can make them green. I think you're absolutely right. But what if at the heart of that is a fundamental contradiction with the way in which reality functions, complexity, and our values. Because our values don't want determinism, they want openness. Our values want choice and the ability to express the capacity to be free. So there's a tension here, which is, in the name of the good, of the future of humanity, I'm going to tell everybody what they can consume. And you must be green according to my criteria, because it's for the good of humanity. Does that sound like the 19th century, like the 20th century? The ends justify the means? Can we be radical enough today, precisely because of the bankruptcy of the system of engineering and the ends justify the means, to say, today, the question is, can we invent a system, I'm not saying we have it, where the means are the ends? And what would that look like? And that's why when I say hierarchy, and that we don't know how to govern it, we have some experiments that we need to run. And I don't think we're going to plan it. I think we're going to discover it by making lots of mistakes. And those mistakes will happen as we confront reality. But are we capable of learning from those mistakes, from learning from those experiments? And one of the things that I noticed, and this is relevant to this kind of design, is that our capacity to perceive the richness of the world around us is constrained by our idea of the future. Because we're preoccupied with an idea of a green future, we don't notice things that are happening all around us, because we have precisely an idea already in our heads. So there's the challenge here of being able to multiply our ways of thinking about the future.
Okay. Maybe hooking up on that what you just said, but before that, thank you for the input and thank you for confusing me. But I think it's a good sign for learning, for starting learning process. But I was asking myself, think going beyond the box, how to do that practically, given the fact that the way how we think and the categories in which we think are the results of a socialization process that we went through, like being educated by your own parents, by school, the environment, whatever. So this is something we internalize. How can I do it practically to go beyond these boxes and these categories? So I'm completely confused.
No, absolutely right. It's very crucial. Well, let's revisit that tomorrow, because what I want you to see is that this learning-intensive society is just a sandbox. It's a playground. The idea is to play with it. And what you will see is something that many of the people in this room have experienced, which is that when you give people a chance to play in the sandbox, they actually begin to come up with their own ideas. And quite often they have new words, they have new concepts, they discover concepts they didn't know because they're thinking differently. And it's actually, it's not that hard. And today there's a huge amount of work going on around innovation, creativity, in the social entrepreneurship, social innovation, private entrepreneurship, all those things, incubators, etc. So the idea that we can create contexts where people, everyday people, can be creative from where they start with respect to their condition is completely doable. It really is doable. We have evidence from all over the place that it's doable. You need to construct the context. Here, we're very truncated, we're very compressed, and I'm dealing with a group that's been socialized in Economics 101 and Governance 101 and all the rest. And so I'm throwing a model on you because I know it'll disrupt, and I know that it can disrupt your way of thinking about agency. Okay? But when we do the kinds of projects that I was pointing up there on the slide, you have to co-design very carefully. You have to work very, very carefully with local champions, with the people who are locally concerned, and it's their vocabulary. When we did the future of the youth to adult transition in Sierra Leone, we started with libations, we then made music, and after that, people danced. Okay, we didn't do a learning intensive society with possibility spaces and that. No, you don't do that. So it needs to be done. But they came up with an awareness of their assumptions, because the youth to adult transition has a lot of assumptions built into it, and they came up with other models of the youth to adult transition, which made a lot of our policies pretty irrelevant. So that was pretty interesting. So it's doable. It has to be designed very carefully, but you have to understand that you're engaged in collective intelligence knowledge creation, which is a very specific laboratory type process, that you're using the future, in other words, you're introducing anticipation in particular ways, preparation, exploration, etc., and then you have to do it in a way that has a respect for the local discourse, the narratives, and the rituals. So it's got to be done right. So here you're just getting a first exposure to the challenge of designing a futures literacy knowledge lab. I don't know if any of the other people who have done this want to add stuff.
Thanks. Here.
Yeah. I
Let
want
me,
you guys to go back to groups, but anyhow, we're almost out of time.
let me try to sort of agree with our colleague here. Now, the human indigenous knowledge came from the beginning of creation, and we are moving in a curve, whether it is straight line or exponential. And what is happening actually, if we reach this point now in history, then what is going to happen in the future is just an extrapolation of what was happening in the past. And you don't like this idea. I'm sure you say, no, we have nothing to do with the past, and we have nothing to do with the present. Future is different, it's totally different. And I agree with you, because this straight line, or the trend, the upward trend of the curve in a way, might come to a point where it shoots up or shoots down, but it will come back to the trend. And these are the facts of life. Talking about the evolution of societies. And it is clear that every society in the world starts with agriculture, because agriculture is an easy job, and people have water, and people have rain, and people have groundwater, and everybody can go and cultivate. You just put the seeds, sleep, and after 6 months you collect. But eventually, agriculture became agro-industry. They have sugar cane, they cannot store it, they make sugar. And they have cotton, have seeds, they make oil, textiles, and all the rest. After we finished with the agro-industry, we went to industry. And the industry, we started with the simple industry, and we are now with all kinds of high-tech electronics, etc. This is the evolution. This never stops, because one day, 10 years back, nobody was holding a mobile phone. And now in Egypt, we have 80 million people or 90 million people, and we have 101 telephone lines.